everyone. Welcome to Immediate Immersion Live. I know we're a little bit early today. I hope that doesn't bother anybody. Let me know in the comments how you're doing today, how the week is going, how the end of the year is going. Tell me where you're listening from. If you're watching us live, go ahead in the chat. And if you are watching us in replay, go ahead and put it in the comments. So, welcome back. Let me ask you something. Have you ever given a test and thought, wow, my students ace this, but they still can't actually use language? If so, you're absolutely not alone. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Why proficiency-based assessments are not about memorization and how you can make a simple shift that gets your students actually communicating in the language, not just cramming for the test. And don't worry, I'm not about to tell you to throw out everything you're doing and start from scratch. That's way too hard. We're talking about some quick, practical changes you can make right now that will instantly improve your assessments. And before we dive in, if you want to know where you stand when it comes to comprehensible input teaching, check out my CI proficiency quiz at mm.us/CI quiz. It will help you pinpoint your strengths and give you a roadmap for growth. Okay, I'll be right back after this short intro, and then we'll get started. And bear with me just one moment. I think I've got the wrong thing up here for what I want to talk about. So give me just 1 second here, and I will find what I'm supposed to be working on. Bear with me. Technical difficulties, how it always works. Let's go right here and 167. Okay, sorry about that. Just had some technical difficulties. I want to make sure that I stayed on track today. So, first you want to do is create some low stress, high engagement speaking tasks. Instead of traditional one-on-one interviews or scripted presentations, we want to use activities that encourage natural, spontaneous speech. That's going to be an overwhelming theme that you hear about today is spontaneity. Anything that is scripted or memorized or wrote, that's not real language, because we don't wake up in the morning and anticipate what's going to happen, what people are going to ask us, what people are going to say, what topics we're going to discuss. We have to react in the moment. So we really want to work on that with our students. We want to get them comfortable with being spontaneous in their speech and not just rote memorization. I remember back in the day when I had to memorize these stupid dialogues, and then when I actually got in place where I actually could use that dialogue, the other person didn't follow along with the exact dialogue that I had memorized. So I didn't know where to go when they went off script. So it's the same thing with your students. We really want to focus on that engagement. So first of all, we want to describe and connect. So show a student a random photo from real life settings, travel images, AI generated prompts. I like to look for weird photos. The 3 go-to searches that I use for this are funny animals, funny babies, and awkward family photos. And that last one is from a friend of mine in Belgium. She said she always looks for that, and I haven't found one bad that did that. I mean, there's so many awkward photos that are really great generations for speech for kids. And then once you've got that photo, we want to project it up on the screen. and ask them to describe what they see and relate it to their own experiences. And you can do this as a class where everybody's doing that and then maybe making some mental notes and then speaking out loud. Or you can go through a couple of slides. So maybe make a slide deck and the kids randomly get a picture and they have to talk about that one. Or what I like to do also, if it's individual, I will make a set of 10 pictures. I'll put them on slides and I will put them in an app like formative.com, which is my preferred assessment app. It's more than just assessment, so I use it for everything. Formative or quizzes will do something similar. I just prefer formative over quizzes. Use that. And then what I will do is I'll put 10 questions in there and the kids have to respond orally to it. So they have to record themselves. I usually like to have them record a video because that way I can see if they're reading from something. And then I'll randomly have them pick an image. So if there's 10 images, I will have a random number generator generate a random number for that student, and that student does only that picture. So that way it's more spontaneous. I really love this activity. It's akin to the old-fashioned AP test, except it's one picture instead of a sequence of pictures. Another idea for engagement are speed chats. So set up a quick rotating partner conversations where students respond to simple, open-ended questions. Tell your partner about a trip you'd love to take. Something like that. Kind of like speed dating. They switch partners every 1 to 2 minutes. And then you have a variety of questions that you are going to ask the students, and they don't know what those questions are going to be. Obviously, they're going to pertain to the vocabulary that the kids already have or that you're working on, but they're not going to know which questions. It's not going to be memorized answers. They're going to be off the cuff. So I like to use really fun random questions like preference questions. Do you prefer In-N-Out or Five Guys? Those are two burger joints out here on the West Coast. I know Five Guys is pretty much throughout the states, but In-N-Out is generally on the West Coast. So our kids have really strong opinions about that. Or do you prefer Twizzlers or Red Vines? There's again another East Coast, West Coast kind of battle there. Or how many sloths fit in your bedroom? Or how many Hydro Flasks fit in the gym? Things like that to get them talking about things that they already can talk about, but keeping them on their toes along the way. And then you switch up the partners and the questions every couple of minutes. Another strategy is a classroom reporter, where you assign students as roving reporters who ask classmates a question. For example, what's your ideal weekend? What's your favorite vacation? Where did you take your last vacation, etc.? And then they summarize these responses that they get, and then they report back to the class as if they're, the little reporter. So that's another way to get them to engage and have some more engaging speaking assessments to really get them. And these are proficiency-based assessments because they're not memorized. And when they are memorized, that takes it from a proficiency-based assessment to a performance-based assessment. And we want to stick with the proficiency. We want to see how proficient our students are to be able to answer questions spontaneously. That's that key. And I hit the right button for once. 2, let's talk about predictability. So we want to remove the pressure of performing with familiar and predictable routines. We want students to perform at their best, and they do perform best when they feel prepared, even in spontaneous tasks. And so we can use predictable frameworks that allow for natural expression. For example, routine warm-ups. So we can start every class with a 5-minute speaking prompt, What did you do yesterday? Since it's a daily routine, students develop fluency without the pressure of being formally assessed because they're doing it on a regular basis. Or it can be rehearsed, then real. So here you'd let students practice speaking about a familiar topic, for example, hobbies, daily routines, something like that, before moving to an unrehearsed but related prompt. So you can have them talk about their hobbies or their daily routines or their classes or whatever, and then give them something that's related but not exactly that. Kind of like you gave them this little warm up, and now they're going to expand upon that. And you can put, what's a new hobby you want to try? Or what classes are you thinking about taking next year? Those types of questions. So they're related. They got the warm up talking about their classes they currently have, but now you're asking them a related question that brings the spontaneity back into it. And again, they can't memorize these, so they're proficiency type assessments rather than performance type assessments. Think, pair, shares with a twist. So before answering aloud, students will write down 1 to 2 key words, but not full sentences, to organize their thoughts. Then they practice with a partner before sharing with the class. So that's another great activity. It gives them that little bit of scaffolding with the 1 or 2 key words to help them be focused, gives them an idea of what they're going to say. Then they say it with a partner, so they get a little bit more practice. They went from the basic vocab up to sentences with their partner, and then they're going to share out loud with the whole class. So they've had 2 previous scaffolding activities to get them ready for that. And all of these things are still spontaneous. Can I speak? Still spontaneous, but not memorized or rehearsed. But they are predictable because they're related. They've got a little bit of a warm up, and then they actually have to work on the related activity. So that works really, really well, and it brings down that affective filter, that stress level for students. So again, starting with that daily warm up of having them tell them what they did over the weekend, or tell them something interesting about yourself, share one fact, anything like that. Give them something to do when they come into class, and make it oral so it gives them a little bit of practice. Level ones can do this. They can ask, hello, how are you? They can do that. They can tell them about their age or, their name, things like that. Those kinds of things are some really ways to get them engaged in a predictable way that scaffolds later proficiency assessments. Lastly, today we're going to talk about using natural, real-world speaking scenarios for assessment. So I always laugh because I compare this with math. In math class, there was always this problem that I could not stand. And it was the problem where train A is on the same track as train B. They're coming at each other and they're going to crash. At what time will they crash? So that's a, time times rate equals distance problem that they have to figure out. But here's the problem. Nobody's going to take the time to figure that out. That's not a logical question. It's not realistic because both conductors are going to be focused on stopping that crash, not calculating how much more time that they have. A more realistic version of the same problem is, you have a friend who lives in Minneapolis and you live in Los Angeles, but you want to meet at the exact same time in Las Vegas. The Los Angeles person is driving, the Minneapolis person is flying, and now you can figure it. At what time does the Minneapolis person need to leave to arrive at the same time that the LA person gets to LA. You can figure that out. That's much more logical and much more reasonable because we do have meetups with friends and relatives, and we don't want to spend a lot of, downtime where we're not together. So we want to picture it as close as possible. And you can figure that out using that with the same type of problem, but it's more real world. And those are the kinds of things that we want to do in our classroom as well. We want to make them feel more like real communication and less like a performance. So an example could be ordering at a cafe. Set up a role play scenario where one student plays the customer and the other plays the server. But instead of memorized lines, remember we're staying away from the memorization and moving towards the spontaneity, they must adapt based on a real menu and their own preferences. I also like to, when I do these types of scenarios, I usually have them, they know that these 10 scenarios are possible, and they know they could be the person A or the person B, but they don't know what scenario or what person they're going to be going into it. So, for example, I'll have one of the pair pull out the scenario out of a hat, and the other one choose whether they are person A or B. So in this case, they pulled the cafe scenario, and then one person pulls and they says they're the server, the other person's the customer. So they don't know their roles, they can't memorize their lines this way. Another strategy are problem-solving pairs. So give pairs a realistic scenario. Something like, you lost your phone in a new city. What do you do? Or, like one of my favorite books to read for level 2, Me Perdí en Medellín. I got lost in Medellín, Colombia. So you just got lost. You got separated from your group. How do you handle that? Or in a real life example, when a friend of mine took a train from the south of France to Barcelona, we got in around midnight and found out when we got there that no Ubers and no taxis were running because there was a taxi strike. What do you do? All of these things are realistic problems that kids are going to have to use higher order thinking skills to solve. And they can work with a partner to do this and figure out what they're going to do. And then they got to discuss and come up with a plan together in the target language. And so they're going to have to problem solve. They're using higher order thinking skills. They're working with their vocabulary and the grammar that they have. I mean, you can even do this in a level 1. It just has to be in much more simple sentences, but it's still possible to do in a level 1 class. So think about ways that you can do these things and simplify and scaffold for the students that you have in front of you. Another strategy is the mystery object challenge. So here, put random objects in a bag, and then students pull out one and explain what it is, how it's used, and why someone might need it. This is great for an impromptu, creative speaking task. It's kind of like show and tell, except they don't know what they're going to be showing and telling about. So put some weird things in there. It could be a rubber chicken. It could be a glass. It could be a bottle of soda. Something weird in there. And it's completely unpredictable. They don't know what they're gonna reach in there and get. Or you could show them as you put everything in there, and then they go and then they try to pick the things out. And then they have to talk about those. And this is another way to get them non-rehearsed, non-memorized speech and using higher order thinking skills. And you can scaffold this. So you can put up the questions on the board so they can look at them and formulate in their head. What is it? How do you use it? And why might someone need it? So you put those questions on the board so that they can answer those questions. For level 1, you can do it much more simple. What is it? What color is it? What size is it? Is it small, medium, or large for whatever it is? The those kinds of things, those description kind of things that you can do with that. Is it tall? Is it short? Is it big? Is it small? Does it have wheels? Simple things like that that the kids can talk about. And all of those things are great ways to keep the kids spontaneous, because there are as again, we don't want to memorize. That's a performance task. And that's a skit. That's a play. That's TV. That's a movie. That's not real life. We do not get up in the morning and we do not plot out every conversation and interaction that we're going to have throughout the day. So we don't want our students to do that, because if that's all you do in your classroom and then you set your students free in a foreign language, in a foreign country, they're going to freeze up when the other person doesn't follow that rote memorized script that the kids learned in class. So you need to make them comfortable with speaking spontaneously so that when they do meet a stranger in a foreign land, that they are comfortable with talking about, not about politics and really advanced topics, but at least the basic topics they can actually talk about and engage in. And that's the whole point. But if you never give them that experience in class, that little bit of uncomfortability as they learn to be able to speak off the cuff, spontaneously, without memorization, without rote memorized phrases, without a scripted dialogue, then that's going to help the kids be better prepared for the real world. And that is our goal. Just scaffold the activities, and as you scaffold them, take away part of the scaffolding each step of the way so that they can finally go without training wheels. Now, this was a short and quick one. I hope you got some good ideas from this. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. Put a comment in the box, in the chat or in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. Let me know what activity you want to try next. Let me know what you want me to talk about next. All of those things are really, really helpful. Like and subscribe if you're not already done. So it really does help us get out to other teachers and help them out. And I want to give you a link here. We are having another strategies. We're having another $7 webinar. It is May 10th. So in a week from Saturday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 8 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. And it's $7 to register to participate live. So take a look at that. You can get it at mm.us/strategies. And we're talking about grading that doesn't suck. So how you can grade more simply, grade faster, smarter, and stress-free. So if that's something you're interested in, you can get it now for $7, which is a limited time offer. We're having it on May 10th, Saturday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 8, 9, 10. Oh, I'm sorry, not 10 a.m. Pacific, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. I don't know my time changes. 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. So join us that week, mm.us/strategies. And as I mentioned in the beginning, if you want to see where your CI skills are, take our free CI quiz at mm.us/CI quiz. And that way you can find out where you are in your CI journey and find out strategies to help you improve. So with that, I will say goodbye for now. This week, on Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, we have our next CI Stories interview. So if that's something you're interested in, that is on Thursday. And we are speaking with, if I can see which one, it's Tracy, but I'm trying to find her last name because I am horrible with names. Tracy Collazos. So we'll be speaking with her on Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. So if that's something you're interested in, I'll see you then. With that, I say goodbye to everybody. Have a great week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.